Hi, and welcome to Terribly Fun Films. I'm your host, Bobby, and today we're looking at something I happened to discover when wandering around Mr. K's last time I was there. It's an anthology film called Sanitarium. You can probably figure it out by the title that the wraparound is it all takes place in a sanitarium, and we cut to the cases of how the three people we follow wound up there. After watching it, I decided I absolutely needed to review it, and you'll see why as we go through this review. So without further ado, let's get this started. As an anthology film, telling the plot straightforward doesn't quite work. So, the sanitarium is run by Malcolm McDowell, and that is the glue that holds everything together. The sanitarium segments were directed by Brian Ortez and Kerry Valderrama. Brian Ortez also directed in the film called Figuratively Speaking. Kerry Valderrama directed the third segment in the anthology called Up to the Last Man, and directed by Brian Ramirez. To make life easy, the writing. Kerry Valderrama and Crystal Bratton wrote Figuratively Speaking. Brian Ortez, Evan Boston, James Hart, and Scott Marcano all wrote Monsters Are Real. Crystal Barton and Kerry Valderrama wrote Up to the Last Man. Kerry Valderrama, Crystal Bratton, and Scott Marcano all wrote the Sanitarium stuff. And everybody you heard me just name came together and sort of had the concepts and stories for all these to hash out to get everything together. So with that being said, we start off in the sanitarium with Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Stinson talking to us. It's a bit of a voiceover. We cut to him occasionally, and we're just kind of going down the hallways, and he's talking about what's real, what isn't, what makes horror to one person is not horror to somebody else, that sort of thing. And in order to make this make sense, I'm going to need to tell a story here. I used to work at a movie theater. When I was working there, the film The Forgotten, which most people have probably forgotten by now, came out. And the night beforehand, we were doing an employee screening. I convinced somebody else who worked there to stay and watch it with us because I thought it'd be a fun little film. I described it as X-Files Light. Halfway through, just the opening credits, I turned around to him because he was sitting directly behind me and apologized and said, "I'm sorry." Because that's all it took for me to be able to realize this was not going to be a good film. And sometimes you just know. You can watch a very short amount of the film and just know that you will not be having a good time. It also works in reverse. 30 seconds or less into Sanitarium, it just this McDowell's talking about horror and reality and the mind's eye and all this stuff, and I was sold. I was so fucking sold. It was glorious, and the movie never let me down. It is phenomenal, and I realized it was phenomenal 30 seconds in. And it's like, yes, more, please. I loved this. As we're going through the Sanitarium, the first story we actually cut into is called Figuratively Speaking. It's about an artist named Gustav, played extremely well by John Glover, and the sort of demons that make him do what he does, and how that manifests itself into people dying. But not quite how you'd imagine. Again, Gustav's an artist. He does art with these little, I don't want to call them dolls, because I think that's undercutting what they are, but these little black-eyed, long, white-faced, creepy-looking kind of Tim Burton-esque dolls in very weird gothic settings, and he's becoming a huge hit. His longtime friend Robert Englund, who plays Sam, is hosting a big gallery for Gustav, and it's such a success that a New York gallery calls up and offers like $6 million for Gustav's contract to be able to house his artwork and that sort of thing. Gustav doesn't want to sell. Gustav has an assistant named Mateo, played by Walter Perez, and he and Sam really want Gustav to sell. Gustav needs to be on meds because the voices just won't shut up, and they're telling him to do things like kill people and whatnot. However, throughout the course of the film, certain things change, and I'm not going to reveal it, but Gustav isn't the one in the sanitarium. Of the three, this is easily my favorite. In part because it deals with the art world, I think, and I love that kind of thing. I mean, I proposed to my wife at an art museum, so, you know. So definitely that. But John Glover is so great as Gustav. Robert Englund is so good as Sam. And the relationship is believable and engaging and interesting and all this other stuff. That it's really good. So once the horror hits, it really does a great job of like not letting go, because you are invested in these characters, even in, you know, just 5 minutes into this particular short. We come back to the sanitarium. We then see a student who's writing a paper on some medical, on some mental conditions, asking for the records room and for any engaging records there. And the person at the front desk points him to the records room and says number 26. And that is Monsters Are Real, in which David Mazuzu's Steven, it's not quite an outcast. He has some friends and stuff, but is clearly troubled in some manner, and his teacher, played by Lacey Chabert, is very worried about his home life and believes that the child's dad is abusing him. And this one is my least favorite. It's still good. It's still very solid. I just think it takes a little too long to really get to its point. And with that being said, though, once it gets there, it is really great. So the boy comes to school and he has some marks on his back, neck area, like this area here, right? And the teacher calls him, the father, and talks to him, and the father's like, I don't like where this is going, and it's kind of starting to seem like he's just an abusive asshole and doesn't want to talk about it. They get home, and the boy's like, the dad to the boy is like, where did this stuff come from? What is going on? So then the teacher shows up at the house, and then things get really, really crazy, really, really engagingly. I enjoy the ending to this one immensely, and I really don't want to ruin it, but the title of the segment should give you an idea of what's going on. The acting is really, really good here, even if I do think the writing's a bit drawn out in the beginning. Everyone delivers very well, everyone plays it very well, especially David Mazouz as our main boy. He does a great job selling. We come back to the sanitarium, and Devin Phillips in there, and he's being questioned by Malcolm McDowell's Dr. Stinson about why he's there. He doesn't remember. And they're like, well, tell me everything you do remember, and we'll build a case around that. So we cut to the last segment, up to the last man, which is about a man slowly having a mental break. And it's great. Probably it's the best acting amongst all three of them. If just because it's mostly a one-man show. Lou Diamond Phillips is in every single sequence here, and he's always doing something, and it works really, really well. Really, really well. The eventual reveal of what's going on, again, don't want to spoil, handled very nicely, very interestingly, and the kind of break and the way the break manifests itself changes at a certain point when you realize that what you thought was going on isn't, and the movie does that perfectly. It's so well written, it's so engaging that I really just had to sit down and like talk to you about this film because I want you to go see it. The editing was done by Paul De La Crede, Justin Malone, and Brian Ortez. You'll see Ortez's name pop up quite a bit during this. It does not tell me which segments were edited by whom, so I don't know. but the editing in each segment is excellent. And given that each segment is a very different kind of horror, the first one's a bit more traditional monster slasher type stuff. The second one's more sort of supernatural poltergeisty in some respects. And the third one is much more psychological thriller. So each segment's edited differently to allow these things to play out properly, and they do that very well. The cinematography for the entire film was done by Philip Roy, and again, each segment looks good. They don't vary too much in terms of lighting and that sort of thing from segment to segment outside of specific sequences. So there's a kind of uniform look to everything going on, which ties everything together nicely. But that could also be one of the only flaws I would have with the movie, in that it doesn't quite differentiate everything as well as it could have in terms of visual tone and atmosphere. But that's very negligible. Douglas Edwards' score is fantastic. Each piece has a sort of main theme that's very appropriate for what we're seeing on screen. Works really, really well. It's a lot of fun, and it definitely adds to the overall experience. The costumes by Susie Hamilton are great. The production design by Jocelyn Ponder, great. And again, they did it for all the segments. And it's all appropriate for the characters, how they look, how they dress, how they act. Especially the production design. I love the look of the Sanitarium. It all just adds to this great sense of atmosphere and creepiness that is going on for the entire film. Yes, everything I said about all the stories and stuff, a little bit vague. I'm not trying to give things away. That's because I want you to go see this film. It's fantastic. It's engaging, it's smart, it's clever, it's dramatic, it's horrifying, it's intense, it's just so good. Seek it out. Buy it on DVD, stream it on Amazon if possible, whatever. Give these people money so they can keep making movies, please. As always, I've been your host, Bobby, and I'll see you next time.